I've been down there, been down before. You're so down every time you walk outside that door. I've been down, ooh, I almost drowned.
Man, I grew up in Baker, Louisiana, man. I was kind of in a house full of music from a young age. I listened to everything. Like, you know, these days people dub me kind of country rock, but to be honest, I kind of got my chops from listening to everything from jazz to blues. My dad was a guitar player. So basically, he had me listening to every music at a young age. And my mother, she was always kind of skeptical of me, you know, being a full-time musician. But, you know, listening to my dad, she was, if he's got the talent, let him do it. But growing up, I lived a kind of standard life, man. You know, basically a kid growing up in Baker, hanging out with people, listening to a lot of music, you know.
Yeah. You said your father was a full-time musician or a part-time?
At one time, he was a full-time player, but he started having kids, so he kind of dropped music and ended up working in the plants and stuff like that.
I got you. And at the point in time that you came along, had he transitioned to worker, or was he still kind of having a foot in both worlds?
That's a really good question, because it was, by the time I was born, I'm the youngest.
Okay.
Which is scary. But when I was born, he more or less had already transitioned out of being a full-time musician, but he still had the dream and the ambition.
Sure.
So when he seen that I was taking the music, he was kind of full in with showing me everything he knew.
Okay.
And kind of was really like headstrong on the idea, not only learn as much about every kind of music as you can, but he also put me in school and lessons and theory and all that stuff at a really young age, because he was like, that's the one thing I never had. He's like, so if you're going to be a musician, I want you to be an educated one. I don't want you to just know chords and take your way through things.
Wing it, yeah.
You know? So my dad has a lot of credibility for kind of getting me started and getting me where I'm at today. You know.
And what was he playing?
He was a guitar player.
Okay. And so was that your chosen path, or?
Yes.
I mean, in the beginning, obviously now it is, but in the beginning, since the beginning, it's always been guitar.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I took the path of any 10, 11-year-old kid thinking that, like, if I play guitar, I'll get the prettiest girls on
Dude, I
planet
thought the
Earth.
same. It got me no girls in middle school.
It got me no
Zero.
girls. I was a short, chubby kid still, and I just went from being a short, chubby kid to a short, chubby kid with a guitar, and a used one.
Yeah.
But, no, man, but I started off on guitar, but once I started playing it, I don't know, man, it's ironic. I started to try to get girls, and then when I started playing, I was passing up dates to play guitar.
Sure.
I loved it. It just got in my blood, and, you know, guitar has always been my first passion, songwriting and guitar playing.
Sure.
You know?
Oftentimes, I find that for the musicians that start off early in age, they see several different, I guess, pros to playing an instrument.
Yeah.
And sometimes one of those is the camaraderie that they find with like-minded people. Sometimes kids get together and form their own band, so they're always hanging out, or, you know, was there anything else other than your father being an inspiration that also appealed to you about playing music?
Yeah, man. Well, growing up in Baker, Scotlandville, a lot of what I went through as a kid, being honest, was being like the only white kid in the neighborhood. You know, you dealt with a lot of, you had to fight to go to school. You had to basically fight everywhere you went. And there was a lot of things going on in that city at the time, you know, a lot of drugs, a lot of things that I could have easily fallen into.
Sure.
And I used music almost as a therapy and an escape from that. To me, like, playing music was something that took me away from that poverty, because we grew up poor. You know, I was just like any other poor kid in the city. So growing up that way and living and constantly going to school and having to fight every day to get where I had to be, having to constantly prove myself. Because in a city like that, you either have to be tough or fake like you're tough so that you don't have to prove it.
Sure.
Music was such an escape from that. I can be who I really wanted to be. I can imagine I was something other than what I was as a kid. So that's really what the lifeblood of music was for me. I guess if you really want to look at it correctly, it kind of saved my life. It kind of kept me out of the path of a lot of people that I know went down, including my own family.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still remember as a child, my grandmother had a piano, and I would go sit in front of the piano. I don't recall my age, maybe 9 or something, kind of young. But I would feel different. I mean, it was almost like laying on the doctor's couch for a moment or something. Like you just walk away with this peaceful sense and this sanity that comes out of nowhere. It was just you and the instrument, you know?
Yeah, it was therapeutic for me as well, man. I can totally relate to what you're saying. It's something spiritual about it.
Sure.
I'm very spiritual.
So your father started you in music lessons. This was like professional music theory classes that you were taking?
Yeah, like I said, I was a poor kid, and I was kind of getting in a lot of trouble as a kid, so I never went to college for music. But I did get the formal college education without the degree, so to speak. I went to personal tutors and things like that, and they began to teach me the theory and the scales and how to apply in these things, where basically when I went from childhood to adolescence, people started noticing, hey man, this guy's hanging with people on guitar that are years older than him, you know, and then also having the upbringing you had, you're naturally going to go into the blues. So I started playing in a lot of blues bands and stuff like that, and that's how I started getting my name around as a guitarist.
And you started at theory at what age?
I started theory at about 11.
11?
Yeah.
What are kids playing on at 11 years old? I mean, is this a 11-year-old sized guitar? I mean, how does that
I still
work?
have this guitar, man.
Do you really?
It was a PVT-60
Cool.
guitar from the 80s, and it, man, this thing is a hunk of wood, man. You can use this thing as a boat paddle.
So you started on electric?
I did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know. All right.
Well, like I said, you know, like I wanted to get girls, so an acoustic guitar, I was like, look, I don't want to be like a frickin' Esteban. I want to be like a frickin' Slash. Give me an electric guitar, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you listening to at the time?
Green Day.
Okay.
I think we share
Which was
that.
funny because we had two different eras of Green Day. Because I really liked the American Idiot album. That's when I was in like 7th grade and I was angsty. And it was catchy and my voice kind of sounds like Billy Joe Armstrong a little bit. So I was like, yeah, I can sing this. I can play this. This is awesome. And you got like the Nimrod years, huh?
No, really, I'm the Dookie years, man. Like I'm a little older than Phil here. So like the first song by Green Day that came out was in like 94. I was like 9.
Okay.
I'm a little older than Phil. But the song was Basket Case. And the video is what grabbed me, man, how they were in this mental institution and all this stuff. And when I heard punk rock, I immediately was like, this is relatable to me.
Really?
It really is. You would never think it.
Would have
but
threw
yeah.
you for a loop coming from where you came from.
Right, man. That's kind of like going back to like studying all these different kinds of music. There's something about punk rock that I always really related to the rebellion of it all.
Sure.
You know, being a rebellious kid, I would hear this, and I started going back in time and listening to like the Sex Pistols, the Ramones, you know, the Misfits, all these people, and I was like, these guys are great, even though I'm dubbed country rock. I really like all this kind of music.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I kind of paint country and punk almost the same way in a sense where there's a saying about country where it's 3 chords and the truth.
Yeah.
And I feel that punk is a lot the same way.
That is true.
Where it's like, you know, it's more of the songs of like, it's not the polished written songs, it's the songs from like the streets, like the mass population just getting up and being like, I got something to say, I'm going to get on the stage and slam on these power chords.
Yeah, and you know what's funny too, I guess another parallel you could draw is any country purist, I think, would bring up and behold outlaw country sacred as their roots. Do you know what I mean? And it's the same phenom where you're anti, where you're striking your own chord, so to speak, but you're kind of forging your own path regardless of which way the grain's going. You know, so
you know, it's really a kind of a testimony to the fact that there really isn't that much of a barrier between musics. I mean, really, if you think about it, that's the foundation between me and you as partners. You know, I mean, you come from a totally different style of music and a different perspective of music than I do, but we meet right in the middle because we see it the same. You know,
I feel like once you play enough music, you start.
It's all the same.
You start realizing it's all the same. It's one of those things where it's like you keep learning things you already knew, like somewhere back in your file cabinet. You're like, oh, I already knew this. Now I just have like a name for it.
Yeah. It's all a language, man.
Yeah. I think it's funny when people cite things as having crossover appeal because their origins are so similar to begin with. It's just the presentation.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah, that's kind of funny.